Okay. All right. Well, officially, welcome. Thank you all so much again for taking time out of your Sunday to join me. 2026. Not sure if anybody's into numerology or astrology, but word on the street is that we are rounding out a 9-year cycle of just lots of different things. So closing out a really you know kind of hefty chapter, and 2026 is the inception of this next phase. So hopefully that can help set the stage. But really, what I want to encourage you to lean into is that this session today and all of these things that we're about to unpack and talk through, this is about you. It's not about what you think you should be doing based on social media. It's not what your neighbor thinks, your finish line goal should be, what your training buddies are up to. Really just authentically reflecting and tuning in with yourself without any of that ambient and surrounding chatter and noise. It's something that's very hard to do these days, but I hope that we, are starting this year off by holding space to really tune in to where our heart and our head are at, and maintain that just sort of groundedness in your own self, as you move through the year and then just everything that's to come after that. Also, what we're not doing today is creating yet another planning calendar. Planning calendar. Really, what I'm hoping that you will leave here today with are a couple of key guideposts that will help you move through your day, your week, your months, your year, your season, your decisions, the choices that you make, the habits that you cultivate, the people with whom you surround yourself, that you have some guideposts to sort of filter what's in alignment and what might not be serving you anymore. So that's the hope today as we move through a couple of these key reflection points. That's what we're going to be distilling down as you walk forward. So again, we're just going to take a couple minutes to close out the year that we are leaving behind, 2025. We're going to define success in perhaps a way that may not be quite so Instagram worthy, but is a lot more fulfilling. Whatever that means to you, we'll dig more deeply into that. Choose a guiding word, and then, like I just said, sort of build an operating manual or a couple key guideposts that are going to help steward you through the year, in hopefully a very grounded and centered way. So let's close the year out and let's create some space, you guys. So this is our first reflection block. It's going to take about 5 minutes, but y'all can answer all of these, a couple, whatever you feel drawn towards. But a few key questions I'd ask you to consider at this moment are: what are you most proud of in this most recent year? What has brought you joy? What has felt heavy? And perhaps even, what are you ready to leave behind? What are you checking at the door to lighten your load as you step into the new year? So go ahead and just take about 5 minutes. I'm going to mute myself, so it is going to be quiet, but hopefully that's some good reflective space for you. We'll give everybody about 30 more seconds to finish up. And y'all, no worries if you need to come back to these questions. I am going to send out the recording as well as just the question progression if you need to come back and just continue to flesh out, because I know some of these may uh, stem or spur a more in-depth reflection than just a few minutes are going to hold. So just take another couple of moments to finish that out, and then we'll keep moving forward. Awesome. Okay, so one of the key things that I do want to note that, there are probably for many of y'all some things that came up that maybe you're not so proud of, that may feel heavy on your heart, on your energy, things that just kind of feel like a tangled mess, from this most recent reflection. You don't need to fix anything. That's not the intention of this session. Really, this exercise that we just went through is meant to stir up and sort of, it's kind of easy to forget what happened in January, February, March, but really take stock of that full year and bring up, what really set your heart on fire, what brought you joy, what energized you, what is feeling heavy. Some of those things we cannot control, we can't change the circumstance, but, maybe start thinking, how can you reorient around them, so that it doesn't have to feel so heavy? Can you share just that energy with some friends, some trusted people in your life? And also, what can you offload? So we're not having to fix anything right now. But hopefully it's bringing to the surface some things that you can maybe move on, or kind of, like I said, offload, so that you're entering this next year a bit lighter than you are leaving it, or than you were leaving last year, excuse me. Okay, so this is one of the things, if you're a one-to-one athlete, you've probably heard me talk about defining your own success by your own measuring stick a number of times. That's one of the next things that we're going to move through, is defining success on your own terms. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the finish line goals, the outcome goals, the time-based goals, right? So things that are sort of the goalpost end of the road. Defining success, however, on your own terms gives you so much more to celebrate, and also just so much more flexibility in defining and being able to own so many different types of ways to measure up, if you will. So, maybe this is process, maybe this is habit, maybe this is internal work. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about here. And also, should have said this at the outset of this um, talk today, that we can be talking through and thinking through triathlon, of course, or endurance sport. You can also use this question set for any area of your life. Maybe it's professional, maybe it's personal relationships, um, anything like that. So, don't hesitate to, reorient the session based on where you're really feeling drawn to or magnetized towards, if anything. So, okay, too much talking on my part. So, for this next piece, reflection piece, success feels like, okay, what would be true in your life if you defined your own success? What would be true? What would be happening? What would you be feeling? And again, how would that feel if you define your own success? And also, something else to perhaps consider while you're thinking through this personal definition of success or personal reality of success, what would you be proud of, even if no one was seeing it? If it was just, very quiet work, what would you be proud of? So we're going to take about 3 minutes to think through this. So we'll give this one about another 30, 45 seconds if y'all are still rounding things out. Awesome. And again, you guys can come back to these at any point if you feel like you need to give this more time. All right. So y'all know that joy forward is a big element in how we just think about things around here. So with that, if you are envisioning a joyful, badass year for yourself in 2026, what are 1 to 3 goals that fit in with that vision? And it's very easy to get caught up in the laundry list. And I know that the power of suggestion is very real around here. But just for you to anchor, think about these 1 to 3 anchors for your year. Yes, you can add more later, but we really want to take stock and hold space for 1 to 3 key things around which you'll set your intentions and build the rest of your year. Okay, so we'll take about a minute to do this because I know probably a lot of you are rolling into today and this year with a couple things on your mind. And if you don't have anything from a concrete perspective, maybe just 1 to 3 things that you want to be more intentional around this year. Okie doke. So now with these 1 to 3-ish anchors in mind, let's talk about identity. If any, I know probably a lot of y'all have read or heard me talk about Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's one of my favorite books. And I would also just as a sidebar mention that as continued reading if you want to dig into this topic further. Um, but a lot of times when it comes to stepping out of our comfort zone or growing beyond our current space that we're occupying, a lot of times we actually have to adopt the identity of who we're becoming, who accomplishes or achieves or is moving through these things that we're envisioning for ourselves in the coming time, before we can actually begin cultivating the habits that get us there. There's a lot of cool interplay between habits and identity. But if we can mentally get there from an identity perspective, kind of like a fake it till you make it, even is another way of saying this. But the habits often follow the identity because if I'm not thinking, oh, I'm a person that runs. I'm a runner. I'm probably not going to make it a priority. This is just a hypothetical example. I'm not going to prioritize one, the running, or two, just the act of moving through my day of someone who runs. Getting up early, getting my shoes, fueling well, all of these things. So that's why we're talking about this right now. So with all of that in mind, what habits does this person who accomplishes the 1 to 3 things that you just mentioned, what habits does this person have? You can just think through a quick, jot down 3 to 5. What mindset does she embody? Who is she surrounding herself with? What boundaries is she setting to protect that space and that identity for herself? Okay, so this is perhaps a little bit more in-depth one. So we're going to take about 5 minutes again to think through these things. Um, yeah, give it about 1 more minute for y'all to wrap this one up. Okay, so go ahead and finish up the bullet you're working on. So, based on all of the things that we've just talked about and sort of the space that you've moved into right now, I'd invite y'all to choose a guiding word. You can change it later if you need to, but and it doesn't have to be perfect. I've thrown some suggestions up here, um, but what's a word that can just be, doesn't have to be a mantra necessarily, but like a guidepost for your year. Um, Maybe it's steady, grounded, brave, spacious. My personal one's expand or expansion this year. Consistent, present, intentional. Maybe it's resilient, confident, patient, strong, curious. I love curious. That's a great one too. Um, but yeah, let's take a couple minutes and just think about a word that may align with the things that you've been reflecting on. Okay. So, with all the things that we've worked through, reflected on, answered, considered, let's move into our final little bit here and create your operating manual. So when you are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, I saw that someone, sorry, I was just scanning the chat real quick, that sometimes someone is feeling a little bit fuzzy or uncertain. Um, these are the things that, you can anchor back into and come back to center your guiding word, your top priority, and one non-negotiable habit. So go ahead and just perhaps these things are listed elsewhere in your note sheet so far, but go ahead and just rewrite them all together. Your guiding word, top priority, or overarching goal for the year, and one non-negotiable habit that you're going to carry forward with you through the year. Maybe about 15 seconds. Finish that up. Okay. So I've been sprinkling some of these nuggets in here throughout our chat today. One of the things that I've really taken to heart over the past couple of years is this idea, comes from a great running coach, of whom I'm a fan. His name is Jeff Cunningham. He actually has the Consistently Good podcast if you want a good listen. But he phrased this idea in such a way that consistently good is better than occasionally great. So think more like, the weekend warrior. That's not what we're going for here. Just these big superhero sessions. It's really enough to be kind of get that be average, if you will. We don't have to have all green weeks in Training Peaks to be impactful. It doesn't have to be, 65 minutes out of a 65-minute run to move the needle. Sometimes 45 to 50. Maybe it's 5 minutes a core instead of 15. Things like this. Those are the things, if we can just stack these small, consistent, unsexy wins, that's so much better than, occasionally really shooting for the stars and hitting that mark and then being, kind of a goose egg on other days. And this is true in any area of life, just showing up, that habit of showing up and giving what energy we have on that day. That's really the crux of the magic secret sauce, if you will. The other thing that I think gets lost in the discussion here, that consistency is, it's not rigid. We think of it perhaps as rigid. I did for a long time, but consistency is actually being adaptable. It's being flexible. It's being nimble and fluid to work around things as they come up in life. I know that everybody that is here today, you lead very busy lives, very audacious lives in many areas. Things come up. And sometimes, we have to, oftentimes, we need to reorient, how we're moving through our day or moving through our week, our year, but continuing to choose to show up in whatever space and capacity we have day over day. Sometimes that's rest, sometimes that's work, if you will, the active work rather than the restful work that we do. But just choosing to continue to show up for that consistently good presence. That's really what we're aiming for here. So I just invite you to consider that as you move through towards some big, hairy, audacious goals this year. All right. So finally, just again, rounding out this operating manual, we want to support the person that you're becoming. No woman is an island, so the adage goes. Um, so just think through what are a couple habits? No, we already talked about this, but habits really are, we fall to our systems and habits rather than rising to these grand, aspirations most of the time. Habits are where that just discipline and consistency comes about. So what are 1 to 3 habits that you can maintain and carry with you day to day, week to week? And also think about who can you lean on for support. It might be your training buddies, it might be a mentor, it might be a coach, might be a good friend, community, whether in person or virtual. Who are these people that you are going and resources that you're going to leverage in your life, to not only buoy you up but also lovingly hold you accountable, and help you just kind of overcome that activation energy that's required sometimes when it's hard to move it ourselves. I'll give you a couple minutes to think through that. Okay. Then another tool that y'all can use, again, if you're feeling a little bit turbulent, little fuzzy, a little bit, just uncertain. If you feel like you're kind of got that feeling in your gut, even if you're feeling like you're getting off track, something that you can come back to is asking yourself, what would alignment look like right now? And sometimes it's even if you're really just feeling, you know, at a loss, even getting separation from being just kind of in the fishbowl, getting separation from your situation, asking, what would I tell a friend who was in this situation? What would I advise them to do? And that can help us give ourselves the situation a lot more grace, and a little bit more objective feedback. Okay. All right. So this maybe is a little bit redundant. Um, but if there's one thing that you're going to leverage most, circle what matters most. Go back to that list. And are you going to default to your guiding word, definition of success, your habit? What's that one thing that you're going to really just have in your hip pocket as your go-to tool as you're moving through the coming year? And likely it'll be all three, but that's okay. Okay. Again, you don't need to do any of this perfectly. That is not the goal. We have one of my good friends, her name is Chris. She's often says, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And that is oh so true. Um, aiming to just have those 100 out of 100 days, all the time on repeat, all it is a recipe for burnout. So, just giving yourself grace to do things, daring to do, big things and small things imperfectly, with a lot of joy and gratitude and love. That's really what I would invite you to step into this year. If you're kind of halfway in, halfway out, or that's something that you uh, that's a challenge for you. Just aim for consistently good over occasionally great. All right, so that is the end of our official chat today. I'm going to go ahead and just stop sharing.